Okay. Three, two, one. We're connecting to the live.
Hello, I'm Clare Summerskill, and with me is Florent Manelli, and he has written this wonderful book. In fact, he's written and illustrated it. It's called 50 LGBTQI+ Who Changed the World, and I was delighted to be asked to write the introduction for it, so that's what my involvement is, and I'm going to be asking Florent some questions about himself and his art and the book. But just before I do that, I'm just going to read out the last paragraph of my introduction to give you a little bit of a feel for what we'll be discussing. So LGBTQI people around the world face inequality, violence, and sometimes even death because of who they love, how they look, or who they are. Sexual orientation and gender identity are integral aspects of ourselves and should never lead to discrimination or abuse. It would be unthinkable for heterosexual or cisgender people to go about their lives hiding their sexual identity or gender identity. Yet this is what LGBTQI+ people have done and continue to do. So the salient theme throughout this book is that for members of the LGBTQI+ community, visibility is life. We have the right to be who we are, discovering other people in our tribe, most especially those who are exceptionally talented or notable in different areas of the arts, politics, sports, or activism, not only creates a wider family and heritage for us, but also demonstrates the vast connections that LGBTQI+ people have made to society, historically and in the present day. Those that have been mentioned, both by myself and by Florent in this book, provide badly needed representation and visibility to members of our LGBTQI+ community and to the wider public. Whether or not they consider themselves to be activists, famous people who have the courage to come out, spearhead the conversation about gender, prejudice, discrimination, and the fight for human rights, and most importantly, their lives and work contribute to a much-needed normalization of the experience of being LGBTQI+. So now we're going to turn to the author, and I'm going to ask you some questions that I'm delighted to hear your answers to. How were you introduced to drawing and illustration, and why did you choose this mode of expression over other forms?
So everything started 10 years ago in Montreal, when I was living there for half a year. I started drawing there because it was 1 year after my coming out, and I felt that I needed to express a lot of things about what it means to be gay for me, how I felt being gay at this moment. And this was also a crucial political moment in France, because at this time, 10 years ago, we're debating the same-sex marriage in France. And at this time, there were a lot of violence, physical violence and verbal violence in France, in the media, everywhere in my country. And I felt I had to express something because I felt very bad for that. I felt very bad in my sexuality, with my connection with other guys, and what was happening in France, a very homophobic context at this moment, which never ends in a way, which was there before, but not as visible as it was at this moment. So I dived into illustration to escape from this and to tell all the stories, to tell my stories and stories of other people.
So in a way you feel that there's, through what you do, your writing and your illustrations, there's a connection between art and political activism to some extent.
At the beginning I was not necessarily an activist or doing being as vocal as I am now on this topic, because I learned so much in the last 10 years about LGBTQ plus history, about LGBTQ plus people, about what it means to have a political voice on this topic. And so much happened on other political subjects, about black topics, about women topics, with Me Too, Black Lives Matter. Many movement happened in the last 10 years, strong movements, and I think I realized in the last 7 or 8 years that we have a strong voice too in LGBTQI topics and discrimination. So I decided to use my arts to do my part, to do my job, to do what I felt that I needed to do at this moment.
And would you just tell us a little bit about the 2 books that you had printed in France prior to this one, which has been printed by Aurora Metro Press in England? Tell us about the French versions.
Yeah, the very first book was has been released in 2019, but the ID I had the ID in 2017. I was scrolling on Instagram at this moment, and I found a post on Instagram written by Oli Alexander, the pop singer, British pop singer, and at this moment he was talking about the LGBTQ plus History Month, which is celebrated in February every year in your country. And it has been a huge shock because I realized 2 things: that we don't have this kind of celebration in France, and that I had a history, and that I have a history, and that my community have a history, an amazing history, a rich, powerful, positive, impactful history. And it's been really painful also to realize that at 26. And at this moment I decided to use what I love to do, drawing, and I started writing with this book, and to tell all the stories of LGBTQ+ people, to help queer people and all the people, allies, etc., to learn more about the LGBTQ+ history, to learn more about who paved the way before us, who did the laws, who helped us to live, to have more freedom in France, in some countries, to understand more with the history, with the context, what is happening around the world, how, for example, colonialism had an impact on the LGBTQ+ rights in many countries, for example. And I wanted to tell the stories of many unknown people who need to be most known.
Yes, and that's one of the strengths of the book, is that it covers so many different countries around the world, and we learn of not just the more obvious sort of American or English sort of famous people, but many people, activists especially, that we haven't come across. How did you find those sort of people? Because they're not household names, but they're doing incredible stuff in different countries. How did you come across them?
Yeah, I wanted to escape from the American narrative of LGBTQ+ history, which is a huge part in Western Europe, but it's not the only history that we have to learn and that exists. We are everywhere. LGBTQ+ people live everywhere since the beginning of the earth, you know. So I wanted to show how people in other countries that we ignore sometimes, how LGBTQI+ people are living, are fighting, are fighting. And so I wanted to choose many people from many continents, many places, dead and alive, who use many tools like sport, like media, politics, activism, arts, because there is not only one way to fight for your rights, and you can do your part with what you like to do, with the voice you have. So I chose the list, which was really painful. I did the list that way.
And the ones that are alive, have you met any of them?
I met some of them. I contacted them, for most of them, by email or Instagram. For some of them, I couldn't meet them because they were in other countries, in foreign countries. Some of them didn't want it to be so visible or to give me so much information because for their safety. But the ones I met were very happy that this book could be published and could exist, because this is something that they would love to read many years before, and specifically it moved many older LGBTQ plus people because they feel sometimes that they are forgotten from the actual fights. We don't see many old LGBTQ plus people in the medias, in the pride. So it was also a way to make these people more visible in the book.
And so much of the book is full of art and illustration, and you've got a very, very beautiful, distinctive style of illustrating. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about that. I don't know if you can see the actual pictures there, but they're all amazing, and they've very much got your stamp on your style. First of all, have you had any feedback from anyone you've done a portrait of about what they think of your portrait?
No, I don't have for the moment, but I think if they didn't say anything, I think it's they like it or it's okay. Yeah, I wanted a colorful book. I wanted a pop, in a way, a book with black and white illustration inside, with collage, I wanted something nice to see, to watch, and to dive into these lives. And I also developed an exhibition from the French book and from the English book. And it's very nice to hear that some people just came to see the exhibition because of the drawings, not necessarily about the topic, and that they learned so much about these lives and about the topic. So this is why I do this book.
And at the moment you're touring around showing the drawings, the illustrations which are presented, and then doing talks about the book as well, aren't you? So it's a sort of, it's a double whammy. You can get the artist and the writer. Artistically, is there any artists or artist trends that have really influenced your work?
I have many influences or inspiring arts that I love. The first one is Andy Warhol. I discovered his work when I was 14, and it's been huge for me. I read a lot of books about his life. I have a lot of books about illustration, because he started with illustration at the beginning of his career. About his painting, about his life, and all the things which were around him, the factory, and So Andy Warhol is a huge inspiration, and I also love the David Hockney artwork, Glittering, Frida Kahlo, Alice Neal. They work a lot of portraits too, all of them, in different ways. I really love their work.
And having done a couple of books already of the same theme and subject in France, and then with the English version's got slightly different subjects and content, hasn't it? It's got new people in. So tell us one or two of the French people that you had to sadly lose in order so that we could put more English people in, but ones that you were sad to see go that we probably haven't heard of.
There is a poet that I love in the French version, who is Didier Lestrade.
Say again?
Didier Lestrade. He's a journalist, French journalist. He's HIV positive. He has been HIV positive in the 80s, at a moment where, at a critical and political moment of the HIV crisis. And at this time, he decided to create ACT UP Paris, 2 years after the creation of ACT UP New York. So we were in 1989. So he created ACT UP Paris with other friends, and ACT UP had a huge impact in France on the HIV movement, on the gay rights too. There's still a lot of images from the action that ACT UP made in Paris, the die-in, for example, or all the action they did against the church, for example, you know. So yeah, he did a lot for ACT UP, and after that, in 1995, he created a huge magazine, a huge gay magazine in France, and the name is Tenchu, which can be translated by Stillborn in English. This is a magazine that still exists, which had difficult times because the press, the printed press, is difficult in France. But Tenchu had and still have a huge impact on gay culture. And now he is retired in the countryside of France. He has a huge garden, and he writes books about HIV, about ACT UP, about gay porn, about the gay culture in general. And so it's a very inspirational activist.
So I'm assuming, because you've got so many strings to your bow, that you've got other projects you're working on. What are you excited about at the moment?
About my project? I released 3 weeks ago in France a collective book that I directed with 7 other gay authors, journalists, activists, and artists. And I wanted to put a light on the word in France, which is PD, which means faggot in English. Because this is a specific word to tell in a political way that you're gay in France. And so we wrote, each one of us, a short text, intimate text, political text, about what this world means for us, and why we need to have more solidarity in the gay community, why we need to think more about the political aspect of our existences. And because during the last 10-15 years, I think that the gay community has been less political than it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, for so many reasons, because the community has grown up with the LGBTQI+, with the queer world also, and I feel that being gay has been less desirable, I think, and telling that you're gay has lost a little bit in French context again, has lost a little bit some sparkles, I think, and which is a mistake, I think, because we need to be louder than ever, because of the aggression, the physical aggression and the discrimination are still real.
Yeah, so bringing back the sparkle and the aggression.
Yeah.
So just to finish off, this is a two-part question. If you could have a meal with anybody of any of the editions of the book who is alive, who would you like to spend the evening with? Not the night, the evening.
Thank you for that. I think it could be Peter Tatchell, I think, because he's so many decades of gay rights, and the Netflix documentaries about his life is super interesting, and I didn't know that much about his life and his fights. So I think I would love to have a meal with him.
And the next one's, just to finish off, a little harder, of the people who are dead. Who would you like to have met?
I already have the answer. It's Larry Kramer.
Oh, yes.
He's the founder of ACT UP New York, the Gay Men's Sports Crisis, and an amazing author. So I would have loved in another life to talk with him.
Yes, yes, excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking
Thank you.
about your wonderful, wonderful book, which I hope people will check out. As I said, it's Aurora Metro Press, and it's called 50 LGBTQI+, Who Changed the World, by Florent Manelli. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.